questions, I've got some questions. I want to know you. But what if I could ask you only one thing, only this one time? What would you tell me? Well, maybe you could give me a suggestion.
This is Tom Schneider doing an interview for Life's a Bluff, our first live random questions, which is a mixture of real interviews and our own crazy-ass stuff. Tom, thanks for being here today.
It's great to be here.
And your lovely hometown, or near your hometown, of Phoenix, Arizona, here in Scottsdale at the Valley Ho Resort and Casino.
It's a beautiful place, I'll tell you. It's unbelievable. I'm shocked. This used to be a dump, and now it's absolutely... I keep marveling at how nice this place is.
They've kind of turned it from a leftover Hojo to a pretty neat retro kind of feel.
Yeah, I mean, you could see Hugh Hefner just crawling right into this place, you know.
I can dig it. It feels like Austin Powers kind of got with the Southwestern theme here.
It does. It does.
You know, we'll tour it around with the camera a little bit. We'll show everybody what's going on. Well, Tom has been nice enough to come out and talk with us here while we were dropping into Phoenix. He's, of course, one of the voices of Beyond the Table, which you can get on a podcast at beyondthetable.com. Here streaming, and also hear his melodious tones as he hosts things such as the Poker Bowl, and I imagine you've got a couple other things in the works.
I'm trying. I'm always trying. I actually did 3 of the broadcasts for the World Series final tables that were the sequestered final tables, and then also I was on for about 6 hours on the main event on the Sirius Radio broadcast, as well as the World Series of Poker. Their special, you know, if you go to the site, you can actually watch
the pay-per-view events.
Yeah, the pay-per-view events. Yeah.
Who was your co-host on that? There were several there. Robert Williamson was supposed to be there.
Robert Williamson was there on the main event. He and I and Howard David. He's a professional broadcaster, and obviously Robert Williamson and I had. We were the ones poking the jokes and having fun, and Howard was the one that keeping us in line.
Okay. And was there anybody else involved with the broadcast?
On a couple of the other ones, I hosted the show with Jeff Madsen.
Okay.
And then another one was with just Howard David. I think it was just myself and Howard David.
Okay. Well, what was your impressions of a guy as young in last year's World Series of Poker Player of the Year, Jeff Madsen? What were your impressions of Jeff?
He's a really nice guy, real sharp guy, and you know, he didn't have a very good World Series this year. I hope that I can follow up my Player of the Year a little bit better. But I liked him a lot, and I think he's a very insightful guy, and we had a lot of fun.
Good deal. Good deal. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is while you were doing it, you ran across the whole gambit of players, from the seasoned professionals to colorful characters like Scotty Wynn, all the way to the people that made you raise an eyebrow and kind of go, like the Hevad Khans and the Umberto Brennis. Can you tell me, the beyond the table, you obviously spoke out against the antics of Hevad Khan, you obviously spoke out against Umberto Brennis, but could you tell me why you think that that's not good for the game of poker and it's not good from the entertaining side of that?
Sure. I think from Umberto's side, I think that what he does with the shark is something that, a sixth grader might have come up with, and I just don't think it's not funny, it's not creative, it's not anything. And I do enjoy some of the people at tables that are sarcastic or funny or make witty comments, but having a little shark, I think, is just kind of infantile, and it doesn't really do anything for the game. And I honestly think I'm getting a lot of comments from people outside of poker that they don't really like it either. And as far as Hevad Khan is concerned, one of the things I think that's really important is when you're playing the main event and you get knocked out of the main event, that's the worst day of the year for you. And to dance on somebody's grave, so to speak, or to run around and make monkey noises, I think is just so despicable. And one of the reasons is as a professional poker player, what we're trying to do is we're trying to attract people to the poker industry. We're trying to get people to come play poker with us, and we obviously want wealthy people that maybe don't know the game very well. And it would be similar if I took you out to play golf, and every time, and you had never played golf before, but you thought you might want to try it, and every time you made a bad shot, I made fun of you, I laughed at you, I ridiculed you, I made you feel horrible.
Stupid, worthless, no good, goddamn freeloading son of a bitch, retarded, big mouth, know-it-all asshole jerk.
Well, I don't see Bill Gates going, gee, I can't wait to play poker with Hevad Khan. I want to be treated that way. And so I think it's important for us to upgrade our behavior so that respectable people say, gee, I wouldn't mind sitting down and playing with a bunch of guys like that because it looks like they're having fun. And so that's the thing that I think that really where Hevad is making a big mistake. I know he's a young kid, but it really is. I can't stand to see that. First of all, it's disrespectful to a guy who gets his dream every year to win the main event, to get his dream crushed, and then to basically make fun of him and make him feel bad. I think it's just unsportsmanlike. It's not courteous. It's a lot of bad things. So.
Yeah. Recently they brought him on air on, I don't know if you listen to other poker radio shows, but on
a few sometimes
the Poker Road Radio, which is the newest one. They had him on, and you could tell from the beginning they were waiting to crucify him because not a single person on there thought that was interesting. Of course, Joe Seebach and Umberto Brenes have their own personal history and issues at events and that sort of thing. But the guy all of a sudden with a PokerStars sponsorship and something on came off as a bright, intelligent, thoughtful guy who seemed to make a real excuse or thought for what he was coming off on and how things were filmed. Do you think there's a way to make up for what was being done there, or if there's any reason to do it? Or
I think there's a way to make up. I mean, people, especially Americans, are very forgiving. They like to see people make comebacks and that kind of thing. And if he just started behaving normally, I think he could make amends for that kind of a thing, and he obviously doesn't have to make amends. He's already got a deal with PokerStars, I believe, and which, quite honestly, to me is kind of disappointing because that's what it says a little bit about the poker industry. Unfortunately, that people that behave poorly like that get a contract from a major poker company, and I can't see anybody outside of poker. I can't see Hevad Khan outside of poker getting a sponsorship deal from any other company in America. And that's the sad part, is that they've chosen to take somebody who really doesn't represent poker very well and say, we want him to represent our site. So.
And of course, somebody like Umberto Brenes was actually already sponsored before the Shark Antics began. Right. And of course, last year, and he is one of the most consistent cashers in World Series history.
He is.
But I think, do you think some of that, I think it might have something to do with it, comes from the fact that he's trying to come up with something interesting, but his command of the English language isn't that phenomenal?
That could be true. That could be true. But he might need to go with a different animal or something. I don't know what it is, but certainly what he's chosen to do, I think is ridiculous. I mean, the other way I look at these things is that imagine that, okay, he's one guy, and Hevad Khan is one guy, but now imagine the whole poker community doing what these people are doing. Imagine how horrible the game would be, is if every time somebody had a big call or a big this, they got up on their chair and they showed everybody in the whole poker industry doing this, poker would be an absolutely horrible game, and we wouldn't attract anybody. And so I try to apply that standard to everybody, and that's what I come up with, is that this would be a crappy game if everybody behaved that way. So why should their behavior, just because it's one person, be excused? And I don't think it should be.
Okay. Well, that's a very fair piece to go on. We were talking a little bit earlier, and you mentioned that you thought certain aspects of poker were dying, were kind of moving on a downward slope. Do you care to kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. I think that what I've said is that high-stakes cash poker is dying. It's not dead, but it's dying. Last year, when I was at the World Series of Poker, there were always 2, 4, and 800 Badugi triple draw mixed games or other mixed games going, and a waiting list. This year, there was 1, 2 and 400 games, sometimes 3 and 600 game. I could always get into it when I got knocked out of a tournament, and sometimes it wasn't even going. I just came back from the Foxwoods, and I came back from the Borgata and the Taj Mahal in Atlantic City, and they had a 1 and 200 mixed game they were trying to get together, and it didn't go. Taj Mahal had a 153 game I went over to play, and it broke when I got there, and there was a tournament in town. So people are either don't have the money to play these higher mixed games, or they're just focusing on tournaments and not wanting to play cash games so much. So I've noticed it throughout, and if you look at the Bellagio and Bobby's room, There's that special room where they play poker. Last year there was a 1,500, 3,000 game, or 1 and 2,000 game, plus a 4 and 8,000 game, just tons of games. This year at the World Series, not so much. So it's still, there were some, but it just seems as though people have gone broke. The people that we've attracted to the business through the exposure through TV have either decided that, you know, I can't keep losing this money, or whatever the reason is. And tournaments, people are spending a lot of money and blowing their money on tournaments. So if you also look at the tournaments year over year, except for the World Series, and I don't know all the figures, but I know that a lot of the tournaments I've played in on the road, the attendance has been down year over year, almost every tournament. So it shows you that people are gravitating away from poker a little bit, or spending less money, one of the two.
Now the WPT tournaments have been down, but they've been down like 10 or 20 for the main events.
Right.
While entry into the smaller events has actually gone up, and total dollars invested has shored up. But you're saying that the cash games themselves have gone away, and you think that the major tournaments are peeling back a little bit?
I think they're peeling back, and what's happened is there's so many tournaments. I mean, if you think about, for instance, take myself. I had a very good World Series, and I probably cashed in $410,000 or $420,000. I probably spent $150,000 in entry fees, somewhere around there. I don't know the exact numbers. Right. So I made $270,000. I had arguably one of the best World Series of you know, let's say I was in the top 20 of having a good World Series
for cash.
last year.
Yeah, cash.
Well, just for,
obviously,
you know,
the
for
top
having
player
good
points
results.
wise. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But for cash wise, or for just results, or whatever you want to call it, and I only made, and I hate to say I only made 270, but if you think about having one of the best years of anybody there and only making 270, it's really not, doesn't say much for the people who don't cash in anything, or they just cash in a few. I mean, there's the people walking out of there are stuck a lot of money. And so, I mean, it's a hard way to make a living, and I think people are saying, instead of playing this main event, I'll play some of these smaller ones, and if I can hit in some of the smaller ones, I'll play the main event. But if I don't, I kind of don't even have the right to be in the main event. And so I just see that. The other thing is a lot of these tournaments are adding more events. So, granted, the money will be more, because if you build it, they will come, so to speak. But that's kind of how I feel about it.
Do you think they are possibly there's been a few things that have been tossed around. Of course, the idea that the UIEGA has slowed the amount of entrants due to the fact that more internet qualifiers aren't coming in. There's not slower roads for your average person to qualify. Another thing would be that more prelim events may tap some people out who get a little over anxious before the main event comes on. Do you think either of those would equate for this, 5 to 7% drop that they're seeing across the WPT?
I think it's possible. I also think that I just believe that the amount of people that we saw come in when Chris Moneymaker won the World Series and the World Poker Tour started playing, on TV and all that, we picked up a lot of people that had played around the kitchen table or played with their buddies or smoked cigars and so on. They said, I can play with these guys are idiots, and I've made a lot of money. And so they came in, and I think a lot of them have either gotten better or they've just gotten out of it because they think it's stupid to lose $300,000 or $400,000 a year, playing tournaments or cash games and that kind of thing. So what you're saying is possible, but I think that over the next year we'll really see what's going to happen with poker, and starting in 2008 we'll see what happens with the entries and that kind of thing.
Now, when you buy into a 300, 600 mix game, I got a couple of questions about this one, because God knows I'd love to be able to find a game once I was playing it.
Right.
What's your standard buy-in when you sit down to the 300, 600 mix game?
Probably around 10,000.
Around 10,000.
Right.
Now, if you're a standard 3-6 game player, that means 10,000 is what you normally bring for at least one buy-in, if not for another.
Right.